Greetings. So today I want to talk about a fictional character. This is very different, but go with me on this. There's a series of books where it begins with one word and then it ends with the word pray. And there are a series of books written by a man named John Sanford. That's the writer's name because that's a pseudonym. He's got a different name. And the main character in these books is Lucas Davenport. And Lucas Davenport starts out early on as basically just a street cop who then becomes a detective, and then he does some stuff, gets himself off the force, and back up on the force as a deputy chief. Then he works for the state, and as of this time, now he has basically left working for the state. The law enforcement, Bureau of Criminal Apprehension is what it was called, which meant he basically reported to someone who had reported directly to the governor. So he wasn't really with the cops, although he still solved crimes. And now he's pretty much an independent, but I haven't got to that book yet. But that's not really what I'm here about. You know, I talk about leadership all the time here. I write about it all the time on my blog. And I make it sound like every leader is pretty much a copy of another leader. They're carbon copies of each other. And I wanted to say that that's not really what I am saying about leadership. What I'm saying about leadership is that when it's good or bad, you see the same traits over and over again. And, you know, they may manifest themselves differently, but you will see the same traits. And unfortunately, most of the traits you see are bad. So, you know a bad leader when you see him or her. You just see it all the time. And that's as far as I'm going to go with that particular thing. So let me talk about Lucas here. You know, he has been said to be kind of a loner and not really a leader. But that's not accurate. The truth is that every step of the way with this guy, maybe not in the early books, because by now we're up to book number 25, and they've let him age. So now he's close to 50, and you see this maturity in the guy. But you pretty much saw it earlier on as well. And he's a great leader, and I'm going to explain some reasons why. Point number one, he's a great leader because he recognizes he's not always the smartest guy in the room. He's a very smart guy. He's one of those guys who just has this memory where he can remember a lot of stuff, maybe not like didactic. In other words, he may not have total recall, but stuff always stays in his mind and it comes back to him. Yet, he's willing to ask other authorities for assistance and explanations of things. He's got people who work for him, and he will ask them every once in a while, well, okay, what's your take on this? What do you think we should do? Even if he doesn't always go that route, he asks. And, you know, there's this thing where there's some leaders or some people who think that leaders are supposed to have all the answers. And he recognizes that, you know, that he's just a guy who has an idea about things, but he needs more information. And he doesn't just sit on that. He's always trying to learn other stuff. That's one quality of a good leader. He's very loyal. He's a very loyal guy. I mean, if any of these people show themselves as having some kind of knowledge and some kind of skill, and they would do anything for him, he will do anything for them. He will back them up. He will take a bullet for them. He will vindicate them. If something happens to one of them, and something did happen to one of them in one of the books, he will go get revenge. Now, I'm not necessarily saying that revenge is a great leadership quality, but the thing is, he's loyal, and he gets that loyalty back. These people would die for him. They is not a, like I said, they put themselves on the line for him. They will call him and explain all this stuff and get his assistance, and he does the same thing. You know, you cannot overvalue loyalty at all. And that's what he does. So that's a great leadership, trait to have. Now, another thing that he does is he will, I'm going to say flout authority, but that's not quite accurate because that's not the thing. What he will not do is if leaders try to get him to do something that he knows is wrong, he will figure out a way to go against it. And that happens, that doesn't happen as often as it should, but it does happen. As I'm doing this video today we had, well, we had the representative for the Republican Party running for president who decided that he was not going to support some other members of his party for offices they're running from. And the guy who he selected as vice president decided to go a different route and say, well, of course I'm going to support them. They're, you know, legitimate party members. They're quality men, and we need to support that. And that was one of those kind of situations where someone who, if he's elected, would be subordinate to the other guy, basically said, no, you know what, no, we've got to do this the other way. We've got to, you know, do the right thing. Well, that's what Lucas Davenport does in these books. So he may listen to what someone says, but he will always figure out a way around it. And like I said, that's not necessarily a leadership trait that people will say, you know, up front is a good one. But you know what? I did it. I've said this in a video at some point down the line where, you know, I worked in hospitals. I was a director, and almost all my employers are almost always women. And a lot of them had kids. And back then, because I'm not sure if they have the same kind of rules now, but back then, quite often, they only got 3 sick days a year. Employees used to only get 3 sick days a year in a hospital yet. And if you had kids, if you had more than one child, you were going to have sick days because your kids get sick. And, you know, I came from a generation where it was almost always the woman who went home with the kids. It was almost never the man. I never had any kids, so I don't know how that would have worked for me, but that's how it was. So I would sit there and I would say, well, so I'm supposed to what? Fire a worker who I've put a lot of time into to train and work with, and she's at the top of her game, and now I'm supposed to fire her because she is missing a sick day because her child is sick? I don't think so. So I wouldn't do it. You know, I'm not going to say I fudged numbers because I didn't fudge numbers. I just didn't record it as a violation of time. No, I wasn't going to do it. I never did it. And no one ever called me on it. I don't know why they didn't call me on it. Maybe they weren't paying attention to what I was doing. Maybe it's because I had a good relationship with other department directors who thought it was a lousy deal as well. I don't know. But sometimes you just have to do things your way because it's the right thing to do, not because you're following the party line. You're following what someone else says to do. And, you know, I'm thinking that those are 3 pretty good things that when you look at leaders, you have to say you want someone who will have your back, who you're willing to give everything you want if you're working for them. You want someone who knows that if you offer them something, that they're going to value your opinion. And you value their opinion as well. And you want someone who's not going to be always totally by the book when it regards things like family or justice or something like that. You know, I'm a stickler for having policies and procedures. But there are things that are beyond the boundaries of that. And if you're a leader who's going to just always follow the party line because it's convenient, you're not really a leader. You know, you're more of a puppet, and people aren't going to respect you as much. You know, you can't treat everyone the same as everyone else. You treat people fairly, but you can't really say equally because it ain't true. It just can't happen. So anyway, those are my thoughts. I just went with those 3 things. You ought to look at some of the books. They're fascinating. Yeah, there's some language in them. Yeah, he kills a lot of people. You know, they're murder mysteries, and this is what he does. But it's a good way to see someone grow and become a good leader. Whoever says that this guy's not a true leader, he's more of a loner, has no clue what they're talking about. Then again, everyone doesn't look at leadership like I do. But let me know your thoughts on the qualities I've just mentioned. And if you think you have them, or if you know people who don't that you wish they did, please like the video, share the video, comment on the video. See, I'm learning that part. So y'all take care, and we will talk next time.